Hello, Devlin Bishop here with you, and welcome to Mondo Nostalgia. This is a very special recording. I'm excited to talk about this because I have always been a movie fan, and we are going to talk movies today. Well, I'm going to talk to you about movies, but by all means, if you agree or disagree or want to talk about movies, please just list some comments and stuff, because I love talking movies. And I have been a movie fan since I was a little kid. My dad used to take me to the movies all the time when I was 6, 7 years old, and I've just continued loving movies all this year. It is 2020. Happy New Year's to all of you, and I am going to be taking a look at the movies of 2019. Now, before we get to this, I just want to say that I didn't get a chance to see all the movies I wanted to this year. There's a couple standouts that I'll probably see in early 2020 that will either be added to this list later, or I'll put it with my 2020 list. And basically, I got to see about 44 or 45 movies this year. And it was a good year. I usually see a lot of movies, but this year I've been really rejuvenating my love of movies again, and thanks to little independent theaters and stuff, I got to see a lot of diverse movies, some foreign films, some little independent films, some big blockbusters, of course. I still go to see them, and it was a good year for movies overall. I think I've seen more good movies than bad movies, although some of them may not have resonated with me like others did. So I want to start by reminding you that this is just my opinion, and we may not agree on the movies, and that's okay. We're allowed. We're allowed to have differences of opinion, even if yours will be wrong. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I am totally kidding. Do not start the hate mail. I love discussing movies, so I'm really looking forward to this little segment, because I get to talk a lot of movies. And usually what I'll do is I usually do my top 10 movies, and then I might do another one where I talk about my not so great movies. But this year I decided to change it up a bit. Not only am I going to take a look at my 10 favorite movies of the year, I'm going to take a look at my honorable mentions. I'm also going to take a look at a couple of categories where I'm going to put 3 movies in categories like worst film of the year, most worthy film to search out and see, most disappointing film of the year, the most surprising films of the year, and what I consider the most overrated movies of the year. So we've got a lot of movies to cover, and I'm so excited because I love talking movies. I constantly want to, I'd love to do a group where we watch movies and talk about it, because I don't know, I always hear about these groups, but if you know any of them, let me know, or maybe I should just start my own. But I just love talking about movies, bad, good, the ugly, the good, the bad, the ugly. I love talking about that movie too. I love it. But that wasn't from 2019, and this is all about 2019. Let me have a little swig of my drink here. And if you're a movie fan, stay with me and enjoy. Remember, these are only my opinions. Some of these opinions will not be loved by you. I'm warning you right now. And some you might agree with. And please, don't be afraid to comment and let me know what your favorite movies of the year are, or what you disagree with what I said, or do you agree with what I said. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's start at the bottom of the barrel. Let's start at my worst movies of the year. Now, I don't like to put down movies a lot, but sometimes there are movies that just don't work for me. And these are the 3 movies that I did not like. The worst movie of the year for me was a little movie called Lego Movie 2. It was really called the Lego Movie Brick 2 or Part 2 or Block 2 or whatever it was. But anyhow, I saw this movie. Now, a little backstory. I actually didn't want to see the first Lego movie, and when I actually did get to see it, I actually found it to be very charming. I actually thought it was very entertaining, and it might have been one of my favorite movies of that year. When the next movie came out, I went to go see it. And again, I really had no interest in seeing it because I thought the first movie was such a nice one and done movie. But I went and saw it. I wound up seeing it in 3D. I paid way too much money to see this film. I didn't find it endearing. I found it annoying. I found it just in your face. There were some good song moments in it. There was only like one or two songs in the first one, but they actually almost turned this into a musical. I thought the songs were okay, but I just felt the story at hand wasn't that good. A lot of people didn't go see this movie too. It actually kind of bombed at the box office, and a lot of people I talked to weren't quite as endeared to this as the first one. So I might not be alone in this one. My second worst film of the year was Dumbo, and this one kind of hurt because I was really looking forward to it. I like the idea of Tim Burton taking on the Dumbo story. When you think of Tim Burton taking on like Disney classics, Alice in Wonderland made sense, but Dumbo didn't. So I was kind of interested to see what he'd bring. Now let me get something straight here. The star of this movie, Dumbo, there is no problems with that little elephant. In fact, whenever he is on screen, he steals the show. He is just wonderful. He looks great. The CGI looks phenomenal. It's just the story that they had to build around. Now, keep in mind, the original Dumbo is only just over an hour. And there's a lot of, stuff in there they had to cut because of, like, racist overtones, we'll say. But all the stuff they added was just, I thought, kind of garbage. And I didn't like it. I think the most annoying thing in this was that they didn't trust their own CGI. You can read Dumbo's face, so you can see everything, but for some reason they have this little girl that has to kind of tell us what Dumbo's feeling. Oh my God, Dumbo's afraid. Oh my God, Dumbo's not going to do this. And it's so annoying. It's almost like a kid talking through the whole movie. And I hated it because their CGI for Dumbo was so good. They didn't need it. We could see what Dumbo was feeling when he, lost his mother, or when he was doing his first, act that's on the high wire, whatever. You could read it. They didn't take it. I will give Tim Burton a little bit of credit, though. He actually made a Disney film where he actually kind of takes on Walt Disney, and I give him props for doing that. The Michael Keaton character in this is like basically trying to get rid of circuses to build amusement parks, and I love that Tim Burton was brave enough to take on Walt Disney in a Walt Disney film. So good on you there for Tim. Too bad I didn't love this movie much. And finally, my third worst movie of the year is Men in Black International. This was not really a reboot, but a soft reboot, but it was still connected to the Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones universe. It starred Tiffany Haddish and I think it's Tiffany Haddish, yeah, and Chris Hemsworth, who are very charismatic. We've seen them in Thor Ragnarok and stuff. And I honestly will say that for the first half hour of this movie, I really thought they were going to win me over. I love the first Men in Black, and I thought the third one was good. Try not to talk about the second one too much. But for some reason, after the first half hour, it looked like it was going to take us to a new place. It actually didn't, and it just went back on the old formula of the Men in Black movies. And it relied way too heavily on its stars. And you have two charismatic stars here, and they do the best they can, but the material just wasn't there. And since this movie didn't do so well either, I'm guessing I wasn't alone in my thoughts here. Let's go to something a little more positive now, just so we're not negative to start this podcast, because that's not a good way to start a 2020 podcast. Let's look at 3 movies that are worthy of searching out. These are 3 movies that I really liked that may have done well okay at the theater, but should have done better. But they were independent films, and I think you should check them out. The first one is a weird little movie called High Life. It's a science fiction indie film starring Robert Pattinson, and he's incredible in this movie. And for those of you who are still having problems with him playing Batman, this is one great movie to check out. He's got a couple other movies to check out that you should. But High Life is just a weird, weird movie. I never knew where this movie was going. And if you like unusual science fiction, that is definitely telling a story. And definitely making a social commentary. It's just you might not know exactly what it is while you're watching it. Definitely check out High Life. I'm also throwing on this most worthy of looking out and finding it is Honey Boy. This is Shia LaBeouf's life story, even though the names are changed in order to protect the innocent, which was funny, though, because Shia went pretty much promoting this movie, telling everybody it's his life story, and you can definitely see it. He may play a different character, but you definitely see shots of him being in like shows like Even Stevens or a movie like Transformers. Honey Boy's a weird project, and I was very much looking forward to it. I don't think it nailed it as much as I hope it did, but it was still a fascinating movie to watch. The thing I loved about it was this was Shia LaBeouf writing a story about his past, and especially his relationship with his father. It's a dark, twisted tale that deals with a lot of different types of abuse. So it was brave of him to do this, but the really dark part to show you that Shia is not like everybody else, and that's why I love him so much, is that Shia actually plays his abusive father. So when he's doing scenes where he's abusing the kid, it's Shia abusing himself, and that takes you to dark places. It's a really good movie, and it's definitely worth checking out. As I said, I wish it was better, because I really wish it was amongst my top movies of 2019. But it is really worth checking out. My final movie is The Farewell. This is a foreign film. I want to say Japanese, but I could very well be wrong. And I'm a very bad movie reviewer for not knowing. So I'm going to look it up right now so you guys don't think, oh, I can't listen to him anymore. It's a Chinese film. I apologize. And this is a wonderful movie. It stars Awkwafina. And it's a movie basically about traditions, and a wonderful movie. It deals with heavy subject matters, but it actually deals with it very dramatic, but also very light. Awkwafina does an incredible job. I think the standout in this film is the grandmother. I want to pronounce her name, and I know I'm going to get it wrong. Anyhow, this movie deals with big topics. It's basically about a family who learns that the grandmother of the family is going to die. So they all make up this crazy this lie. And this is based on a true lie. That's what it says right there. And it basically, they decide to make it a wedding so everybody could show up to say their goodbyes to the grandmother, but they're not going to tell the grandmother she's dying. Awkwafina is told that she shouldn't come because she wears her emotions on her sleeve. She winds up going there anyhow, and it's a wonderful movie because you just don't know if she's going to tell or somebody else is going to tell. And the performances are really wonderful. The Farewell. This was a fairly big indie film, so you may have seen it. But if you haven't, this is a great film. And if you're a person who has trouble dealing with death and stuff, this is a wonderful celebration of life. Just because it deals with a dark tone, don't think that it's totally doom and gloom, because this is not. This is a celebration of life. So that is the movies I think you should search out for 2019 for me. Now we're going to go back, and this is my hardest category because, you know, I can admit every year is going to have worse films, but the heartbreaking one for me is what I like to call the most disappointing films. These are three films I was really looking forward to, and I have to say they let me down in big, big ways. The first one, not so much, but a little bit, and that's why I put it in the third spot. Terminator Dark Fate. Now, I've actually been a fan of all the Terminator movies. If we talk Terminator, we are going to get into an argument because my favorite Terminator movies are probably different than your favorite Terminator movies. I still think the first is the best. I did not love the second one as much as everybody else did, but I had no problems with the three that followed. I admit there were troubles with all of them, but I have liked every Terminator film up until this point. And this movie kind of ended it. I really didn't want to go see this film, but I had a friend who told me, come on, let's go see it. You've seen every other one. And I absolutely hated this movie. I hated what this movie stood for. I hated that they basically just manipulate some of the original characters to redo parts of the first and second film. And I know this is a franchise that does it, but it did it so bad, and I'm just getting tired of them trying to find ways to get Arnold Schwarzenegger back into movies. Because as much as the movies are called The Terminator, these movies are about Sarah and John Connor. They are the stars of this movie. For all the people who say, well, you probably didn't like it because you don't like female-led action films. Well, hate to tell you this, but The Terminator is one of the original female-led action films. So this franchise has always had positive female role models. I had so much problems with this, and even the return of Linda Hamilton was a huge disappointment to me because although she had some good moments, I felt she was mailing it in. I felt she had no feeling in it, and I know some will fight that that's how her character was supposed to be, but I don't buy it. I just had a problem with this one. One of the most heartbreaking disappointments of the year is my second disappointment, and that is Frozen 2. I did not want to see the original Frozen. And when I did, it not only surprised me, it became my favorite animated movie, and it remains that way. I thought Frozen was well written. I thought it was fun. I thought the characters were amazing. I felt the characters all grew in the course of the movie. When I watched Frozen 2, I realized none of the characters grew between the movie. They don't really grow in the movie. Everybody has one plot point, and they carry that through the movie pretty much. I think the story is very weak. Where the first movie had some great plot twists that kept me on the edge of my seat, there was nothing here that was a plot twist. Every time they led up to a plot twist, it was just so obvious. And a lot of people tell me the songs are better than the first one. I do like a couple of the new songs, but overall I think the soundtrack was pretty unforgettable. I really wanted to love this. I didn't want a sequel because I wanted it to be one and done. But they gave me a sequel, and sadly, Disney let me down on this one. Frozen 2, on my disappointing levels. Should have been up at the top, but it was not. It was way near the bottom. And my biggest disappointment of 2019 is Spider-Man Far From Home. I have sat through, I don't know, is it 22 or 21? 22 Marvel films, and even the weakest one I absolutely loved. We even ended the year, didn't end the year, but in the middle of the year we had the big finale, which was Avengers Endgame. And they even managed to wrap it up in a great way. You'll hear that coming up in one of the other segments. And then Spider-Man hit. And this was kind of like, okay, you've had your finale, so this is kind of the prologue? Is that the prologue? No, prologue's the front. The epilogue, yes, that's the word. Anyhow, and I thought this movie was a mess. And I felt there was a lot of character betrayal, as in characters were written stupid just to fill the storyline. This was the first Marvel movie after hitting every one that I liked that I actually gave a flop grade. I still think Tom Holland and Zendaya and Jon Favreau are still amazing actors, and they do a great job with what they're given, but sadly, they're not giving much. One of the worst plot twists ever, you know, and yet they play all the characters, especially Peter Parker and Spider-Man, so stupid that it's just like, why would he trust that person? Why would he trust it? The big reveal is got to be one of the worst reveals ever. Jake Gyllenhaal doesn't do that great a performance in the role he's given. He's charming, but this movie just failed me in so many ways. A very big disappointment for me. Okay, back to a positive category again, and this time it's the most surprising film of the year. These are movies that I really wasn't looking forward to, and they wound up making me smile. And I want to pay tribute to them. So here's the 3 most surprising films of the year, and we're going to start off with Child's Play. Now this is going to surprise a lot of people, because I know a lot of people didn't like the reboot. And I will first admit, I think the design of Chucky is very creepy in this. In fact, I missed the old Chucky. Now, as far as Child's Play goes, I have not seen many of the Chucky movies. The only one I have seen is the original, and I actually love the original. And I think I've seen bits and pieces of the other ones, but it wasn't a franchise I really wanted to see. I like the first one so much. I think I'll get around to seeing them. So anyhow, when I went to go see the remake, I didn't expect much from them. I just thought it would be more jokey and thing. But I actually thought it worked as a horror because they changed one of the main elements. And that is, instead of a psychopathic killer that goes into a doll after he dies, which is the original premise of Child's Play, this one actually deals with artificial intelligence. Somebody screws up one of the dolls in a factory overseas, and it basically turns off all the thing, and we actually see the doll learning from the child. So it starts thinking like the child, and it actually makes a great social commentary about where technology is taking us and how bad it could be. And yes, it's a doom and gloom kind of movie. But there is still a lot of fun in this. Mark Hamill's voice work is really good. And there's a really nice little theme music that they paid tribute to the original. And I just thought that there's some really unique kills. And I really enjoyed Child's Plays, the remake. My next surprising movie was Aladdin. Now, backstory here, I like the animated Aladdin, but I wasn't as endeared to it as, say, like a Little Mermaid or, Lion King or any of those other ones they made new. I am a huge Robin Williams fan, and I always was taken out of Aladdin by Robin Williams' performance. I love all the Arabian stuff and all that, the world they build, and I love the character of Jasmine and Aladdin. But I always thought when Robin Williams showed up, he'd start doing Jack Nicholson impersonations and take things with modern sayings, and it took me right out of the movie. And it's my least favorite part of Aladdin. So when they said they were remaking Aladdin, a lot of people were like, oh my God, that's my childhood. For me, it wasn't. I wasn't even planning to see Aladdin. And then one day I decided to go. And I actually was pleasantly surprised. I actually thought it worked great as a live-action movie. I really liked Will Smith. I don't think any of the original fans of the original who adored Robin Williams in this part would ever be satisfied by anything. But Will Smith does his best. He doesn't try to copy Robin Williams. He just comes on and plays Will Smith. And it works. I actually think the dynamic between Aladdin and the genie has a deeper friendship in it. I think Jasmine has a meatier role, and I think the more younger, age-appropriate Jafar works a lot better than the creepy old guy who wants to marry Jasmine in this. I think Guy Ritchie did a really great job with this, and I thought Guy Ritchie was like the worst idea for taking on Aladdin. But after Guy Ritchie's had some missteps, it was nice to see him doing this. Aladdin, I'm looking forward to seeing it again. It just, to me, it made me smile, and I was very pleasantly surprised. My biggest, most surprising movie of 2019 is going to go to Yesterday. This is the movie about the man who wakes up one day after an accident, and he seems to be the only person in the world who remembers the Beatles. When I saw the trailer and heard the premise of this, I actually hated this idea. I really thought this sounded awful. And somehow I managed to go to the movie. I think, again, a friend said, "Do you want to go and check out this movie Yesterday?" And I decided, okay, I'll go. And I was pleasantly surprised. Now, I am not a lover of the whole bit of this movie. There's actually some plot things in here that does bother me. But the actual story about people forgetting the Beatles and this guy kind of like deciding, since he's a musician, what would it hurt to bring the songs alive, they handle it very well, and I love it because this is such a love letter to the Beatles. And I think the lead actor, Himesh Patel, I hope I got that right, I think he's very charming, and I think he carries this movie really well, and he does a pretty nice version of the Beatles songs. Lily James in this, and she's very good. I'm always a big fan of Lily James. As I said, I had some problems with the story, but overall, I was surprised how much I actually liked it. I actually went and saw this twice in the theaters. And this is a movie I didn't even want to see once. So Yesterday is good. If you're a Beatles fan who's been avoiding it, I really think you should give it a chance because it's a sweet tribute to to the Beatles. And I think it's one that's worth checking out. It's a real feel-good film, and even if it just makes you go and listen to the original Beatles music, it's really good, but I think they do a good job on all the remakes of the Beatles stuff. Before we get into my best movies of the year, let's get to the most controversial one right now. This is what I consider the most overrated movies of the year. The three movies I've picked, I actually enjoyed all three. But I did not love them to the degree that other people did. And these movies are really loved. And two of them are even in the talks for probably getting Oscar nominations. A lot of Oscar nominations. Again, before you start writing negative comments to me, I did like these films. I just found them a little overrated. The first one is Us. Now, I kind of feel bad about this one only because there's been a whole bunch of critically acclaimed horror movies over the last couple of years that people keep telling me are so awesome, and I actually just don't like them. One of them is Jordan Peele's Get Out. Now, I like Get Out a lot, but I don't love it as much as everybody else did. Another one is A Quiet Place, which I actually really don't like. I really didn't like that movie at all, and I do not plan to go see the sequel. I think there's some stupid things in it, and I can't believe how people can just whitewash some of those things. I just think there's problems. I really was looking forward to Us because the trailers had me hooked, and there's a lot I like about Us. I think it's a great cast. I think there's some really iconic scenes that'll creep you out. But again, Us has talked about how it's such a huge, it's making a social statement. And I think I see it, but I can think of two other movies that I think that are horrors that make better social statements. And one is Child's Play, and one is Midsommar, which will be coming up on one of my other lists. And I think they make huge. In fact, Midsommar, I think, makes the biggest social statement in a horror movie this year. Us, I didn't feel it. It felt like, I want to say, like a a really good Twilight Zone episode, but I know Jordan Peele does the Twilight Zone. I keep going to see Jordan Peele because I think he's an incredible. I like the look of his films, and I love essences of it, but I always feel that it unravels right near the end. Get Out was the same thing. There was some stuff in Get Out that I absolutely adored. One of the things I loved about Us, I can say, is not only does he have some incredible visuals, like haunting scenes, the soundtrack is phenomenal too. But once again, this movie unraveled for me. And I don't want to say too much because this is a movie that's better said, and this is not all about spoilers and stuff. My next film that is overrated, and I'm bracing myself because these next two are really big. Us, at least, was divisive. Some people liked it, some people didn't. But I have to say that, and again, I like this film. But the more I thought about it, I didn't love it as much as everybody else. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino. I give Tarantino his dues. I really like him as a director, and I see why people like this film. I also don't understand why people love this film so much. There are some great scenes. There is some scene work and acting in this movie that is probably some of the best I've ever seen in a Tarantino film. But the biggest thing I have with this film is that I have to watch a lot of critics and stuff, and I hear a lot about movies that are toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity. We got to get away from that. We got to get away from that. This movie is toxic masculinity, and I am shocked how it doesn't get called out more. Tarantino has done some movies where women are portrayed in a more empowering light. But this movie, I don't want to get into spoilers, and some of the violence towards the women in here, or just how women characters are portrayed, are quite shocking. I think there's two incredible performances here. Actually, there's many incredible performances, but Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt are absolutely incredible. I will be shocked if Brad Pitt does not walk away with the Best Supporting Actor award. Because I think, even though Leo's great, I think this is Brad Pitt's movie. But there are so many little side things against women on here. You can almost hear Tarantino giggling about, we got this society talking about how we need to make more empowered women, and we got to get away from male toxicness. And here's a movie that celebrates it, and all I hear is it being on people's top 10 lists, how it should win all these awards, and it's almost like people know it is, but okay, if nobody speaks out about it, then we're not going to deal with it. I did have a lot of issues with that, but I still think it's a good movie. Don't think it's a great movie. And this one, I'm just going to say it and say my piece with it really quick, because I know this is one of the most beloved movies of the year, and I think it's my number one most overrated movie, and that's The Irishman. I have seen Martin Scorsese films that are way better than this, and some people are calling this the greatest Martin Scorsese film. I actually think the de-aging techniques and scenes are horrible. Like, again, I'm hearing nothing but great things about this, and I think Cats I think some of their CGI is better than in The Irishman. One of the big problems I had is, even on times where I get past that Robert De Niro doesn't look that young, is that he still walks and acts like a 70-year-old man. And it doesn't matter how much you de-age them, they still walk a certain way. There's a scene where, here's 20-year-old De Niro supposed to be beating up this guy, and it's like a 70-year-old guy beating him up. I think I would have liked this movie more if they actually hired actors to play the younger versions of themselves. I had a real problem getting past the CGI, and I thought the story was all over the place. And it took me a long time. Now again, I liked the movie and I eventually got into it, but this is a 3.5 hour movie, and it probably took me over an hour to get into this movie. I think people go on about Robert De Niro. I think Al Pacino has the best role in this. I think Pesci is really subdued in this. And although people say that really is what makes the part real, I don't feel Pesci's doing anything in this but reading lines, and I know I'm going to get slapped for that, but I'm not getting it as much as other people. I think the movie does pick up as it goes along, maybe because we've just spent so much time. I did kind of make a comment to the person I watched it with saying, I think this would have made a better mini-series. I just didn't like the way they were going back and forth into history, just because they never did it frequent enough. And so sometimes you forgot, oh yeah, we're kind of out of that. And it's just bizarre. And I really didn't, I will not rewatch Irishman again, even though I did enjoy it and I can understand why people get it. I know I'm hearing a lot of people saying it's about, gangsters growing up and stuff like that. And I see why a lot of older people are embracing this. But I'm an old guy too, and I didn't embrace it. I think there's much better movies out there. But you know what? If you like those movies that I didn't like, power to you, because I don't judge you because we don't like the same movies. We don't like the same movies. All right, now let's get to the good stuff. This is my favorite movies of the year, and we are going to look at the honorable mentions. These are ones that just didn't make the top 10, but came close. In fact, some of them may have actually been in there and then kind of moved around a bit. Okay, so here we go. These are my honorable mentions of the best movies of 2019. I'm going to start with a movie I mentioned already, Midsommar. This is a weird movie. It's a deep, deep movie, and I'm really loving this guy's film work. He did a movie a couple of years back called Hereditary, which I absolutely loved, but I didn't like the ending. With this movie, I actually like the whole movie, but talking to other people who have seen it, it seems I may have had a totally different experience than they did. As in, they liked it, but I saw it in a different way. And I think it all depends where you are in your life, where you get it. Ari Aster, I want to get his name out there because he makes really great films. He wants to make long films, and where The Irishman was okay to do 3.5 hours, he had this really long movie that he had to cut down to 3.5. Or 2.5, I think. I'm sorry. I think it's 2.5 I was talking. 2.5. And he wanted to release this 3.5, 4 hour. And there was an extended mix. This basically is a movie that is about a group of friends that go to a festival that runs every several decades. It's a fertility festival, and I don't want to really tell much about it because it's really great. It's kind of a thriller, horror, drama, and it's got so much going on. But this movie, this is a social commentary. This is a movie they should actually teach in schools, and people would realize stuff. Basically, I got from it, and you might take this as a bit of a spoiler, so skip ahead or something, but this movie is about bad relationships and how we replace bad relationships by getting into worse relationships. But when we're in those relationships, are they as bad as we see them? As in, I'm in a bad relationship with a person, but it doesn't seem like a bad one, even though everybody knows it is. Then I wind up in a bad situation, but it's what I need at the time of my life. And So it's a very interesting play, and what I love about his movies is that he really makes you think. Even when you don't want to. He takes his time, he doesn't hurry. This movie is just fun because I just never know what's going to happen next, and I had a great enjoyment. I look forward to watching the extended cut of this movie. If you're looking for a good time that's going to make you smile, this is probably not it. This might actually make you check, am I in a good relationship? Is this a good situation to be in? That's what I think. And that's why I think this movie works as a social commentary. Because I think a lot of people don't realize they're in bad situations until it's too late. All right, moving on to happier films. My next honorable mention is Ford versus Ferrari, a wonderful film that I actually really didn't know if I'd like or not. Matt Damon, Christian Bale, John Bernthal, they're all wonderful in this movie. This is a historical movie that is all about the Ford company taking on the Ferrari company in a 24-hour Le Mans race. I think that's what it is. And this movie is so entertaining. You do not have to be a car fanatic to enjoy it. It's funny, it's dramatic, it's heartfelt. I think it's some of the best racing scenes I have ever seen filmed. Very entertaining. Didn't think I'd like it. Totally loved it. Next up is Late Night. This is a great film. It was hailed as supposed to be one of the best pictures of the year, and it just nobody talks about it for Oscars or anything anymore. I think it's a crying shame. I think Emma Thompson and Mindy Kaling are incredible in this movie. In fact, I'm saddened that Emma Thompson doesn't even get talked about for an Oscar nod anymore. I think as far as female performances go, actually just any performance in general, she gives one of the standouts of the year in this movie. This basically looks at, a late night talk show host who's losing her audience and trying to find new ways to beef things up. I think it's a really great film. It's entertaining and very funny without being goofy funny. You want a feel-good film of the year? Peanut Butter Falcon. This came close to being in my top 10. I love this movie. We're looking at Shia LaBeouf again, and this time he is a man who has a very sordid past, and he meets up with a young man who has Down syndrome, and this young man is desperate to become a wrestler, and he wants to go to a school to learn to be a wrestler. They become an unusual pair on the run. This is a road movie where they're running away from everything from the caretakers of the young man to people who are undesirables looking for Shia LaBeouf's character. I love what Shia did playing his father, but I actually think we see some real moments of Shia in this. I think Shia really, where he brings out so much in his father in Honey Boy, he really brings out a lot of himself, or what I imagine he is, to give a wonderful performance. This is a feel-good movie. Somebody said, a critic I saw, I want to paraphrase them, I think it was Perry Nemiroff from Collider, said that if you don't leave this theater with a smile on your face, you may have some emotional trauma. It's not necessarily the best film of the year, but it will make you smile. And speaking of a movie that'll make you smile, this one came under the wire for me, and it's my last honorable mention. It would be like number 11 in my top 10, and that's a movie called The Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This is Mr. Rogers again, but Mr. Rogers isn't the lead in this movie. It's actually Matthew Rhys. I believe that's who it is, and he is a journalist from Vanity Fair. I might be totally getting this wrong. It could be Esquire or something. But anyhow, he's a reporter who's become a little cynical, and he has a bad relationship with his dad that he can't get past, and he actually is told he has to do an expose on Mr. Rogers, which he doesn't want because it's not cutting edge, and he winds up with a different understanding of the world because he met Mr. Rogers. Tom Hanks is phenomenal as Mr. Rogers. I really didn't think this movie would work for me because I just saw the documentary last year, Won't You Be My Neighbor, which I also strongly recommend. But you know what? this movie works. I was very touched by this movie, and both the documentary and this movie just put Mr. Rogers on such a high for me. It's a beautiful film, and you should check it out. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Drum roll. Okay, my hand's hitting the desk. It is time to check out my best movies of the year. And yeah, it was hard. As I said, 2019 had so many great films. Even movies that I thought were overrated, I loved and liked a lot. But these are the movies that are my favorites. And there is a very different feel to all of these movies to some degree. So let's get started with Good Boys. Good Boys was a comedy that came out at the end of the summer. It's Seth Rogen, again, I believe. I'm looking it up right now. I want to give people their dues. It was a movie that was directed by Gene Stumpnitsky, and I believe it was written by, I could totally be wrong here, I think it was written by, oh, no. I think Seth Rogen might have been a producer on this, but he did not write it. Anyhow, this movie, I guess I think of Seth Rogen a lot because it is very much like Superbad. But where Superbad was an awesome film about kids who were leaving high school and going off to college, this is a movie about grammar school kids that are moving into high school. So they're very young kids. This is an R-rated movie, and they do deal with some naughty things. But the thing, once again, that wins me over in this movie is how awesomely it has a heart. And there's a sweetness, and the three boys that they cast in the leads are absolutely phenomenal. The movie runs really quickly. It pretty much takes place over the course of like a day, the majority of the movie, and it's just a sweet movie. There's a lot of big laughs in it. In fact, one of my favorite laughs in it, I won't give it away, is a reoccurring one of something we never think of. And you'll know it when you see it because they do it a couple times and it's very funny. And then basically it's the sweetness of this, and these boys are awesome in the roles they do. I actually think I like this better than Superbad, and it really brings you back to a time where, you know, high school you have a chance of staying close with your friends, but when you're in grammar school, you're really not even developed as a person, so you're still building. So I'm more unlikely that you don't have friends from your grammar school days. So number 10 is Good Boys. Number 9 is Crawl. This is one of my favorites of the year, and I can't believe it. This is a horror movie about a girl and her father who are trapped in a house, and a storm comes in and leaves them with a whole bunch of alligators. No, I think it's crocodiles. I'm going to have to look this up because I have always, through my whole life, had problems deciding if they're alligators or crocodiles. And I'm hoping this will tell me. But anyhow, it's alligators. It really was alligators. Anyhow, this is a fun... Okay, these are the words I'm going to use. This is a fun, entertaining, smart, intelligent film about alligator attacks. The reason I say it's smart and entertaining is because I'm always impressed with the stuff the characters do. Like, usually in horror movies, there's many times you're like, why are they doing that? But there are times they actually come up with ideas in this that say, no, that makes sense. And so I never felt these characters were dumb in any way. So this movie is only like 30 minutes long, and it's just one roller coaster ride. They get right into it, and it's just fun. The CGI alligators are absolutely phenomenal. If you have not seen Crawl, do yourself a favor and check it out. It is just a lot of fun. Coming in at number 8 is Avengers Endgame. This was actually much higher, but it started falling as I started seeing other movies. This, to me, was an incredible finale to everything. I kind of wish they didn't release Spider-Man, and this was the movie I ended it on, and Spider-Man would have been the first of Phase 4. I understand they wanted Spider-Man as the epilogue, but I think Endgame said it all. It was a nice way, taking a bow. I really have to say that as much as I love this movie, I hated the signatures at the end, where they put the actors and then the actors' signatures. Like, yes, we understand a lot of these people we're not going to see in these movies, but I thought it was the most pretentious thing I've seen in a film all year. It's a great story. I did have some problems with it. I definitely think out of the two parts, Infinity War is the stronger movie. That's probably why Endgame is only at number 8. But I'm going to miss a lot of these characters, and I look forward to seeing some of them in. This is pretty much the end of my going to see every Marvel movie now. Now I'm just going to go to the ones I really want to see. And it was a nice ride. 22 movies or 23, whatever it was. Except for Spider-Man, this was a nice ride. Coming in at number 7 is It, Chapter 2. This is not as good as the first movie. I think the original It is amongst my top 3 movies of the year, but I actually thought it was still pretty good. I know a lot of people had complaints about it. I thought all the actors playing the younger versions were incredible. I think they did a great job. I like how they used the young actors in this as well. It made for a very long film. I never felt it lagged. Not like something like The Irishman did. I actually felt they utilized their time well. I liked seeing how these people moved on from the first movie. And as soon as they get back to this town, they pretty much revert back to the characters they were. I think that's really great. I think this is a really good ending to it, and it makes for a good two-parter. As I said, Chapter 1 is the superior of the film because it was a great coming-of-age film as well. This movie deals with, where did your life take you? And sadly, not all the stories are going to be happy. I do think it's a good chapter, and it did make my top 10 of the year. Coming in at number 6. Surprise, surprise. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, I'm saying surprise, surprise, because anybody who follows me knows how much I hated Last Jedi. And I've never done a full review on Star Wars. I just saw it, and I added it to my list. I was very happy. This movie is not perfect by any means, but it came close for me. I smiled all the way through it. Yes, there's a lot of fan service in this, but guess what? I guess I wanted fan service because a lot of it made me smile. This isn't really a spoiler because it's all in the trailers, but I thought the weakest link in this movie was how they shoehorned the Emperor in. The saddest part about this whole trilogy, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker, is that they did not have an idea for all 3 movies. Say what you want about the prequels, whether you love or hate them, at least those 3 movies had a storyline. This one is so obvious that J.J. Abrams created some really nice new characters, brought the old characters back for the first movie. Then Last Jedi came, and Rian Johnson basically got rid of all the stuff J.J. Abrams had worked to make this. He downplayed some of the new actors like Poe and Finn and just added weird humor to it. And I know some people defend this movie, and power to you if that's the case. If you love The Last Jedi, I would be shocked if you like Rise of Skywalker, because I found Rise of Skywalker not only apologized for some of the stuff in thing, but also kind of did a couple of fuck you moments to The Last Jedi. But why I liked it so much is because I originally said, even though I didn't like Last Jedi, I hope they don't just come in and say, yeah, that didn't happen. He actually writes clever ways to get out of some of the stuff that Rian Johnson brought in. And, this is my theory. If you loved The Last Jedi, you should hate Rise of Skywalker. I think if you really love Rise of Skywalker and love Last Jedi, I think your love for Last Jedi might not be as strong as you say. Because this movie spends a lot of time just writing what J.J. Abrams thought was the wrong, and then icing it with a lot of fan service. It was almost like Disney said, fix this. And I believe they did. It's not a perfect film, but it had me smiling, and I can't wait to see it again. My number 5 film of the year is a surprise because I like superhero movies, and this was one I did not want to go see. And when I went to go see it, I loved it, and I've seen it 3 times since then. Shazam. I thought the trailers looked absolutely atrocious for Shazam. I thought the humor looked bad. I thought everything looked bad. When I went to go see it, I was pleasantly surprised. Not only did I laugh a lot in this movie, but this movie has one big heart. I am totally blanking on the person who plays Shazam. I know it's somebody Levy, and I gotta look it up because he deserves his dues, because I didn't think he'd make a very good Shazam. And Zachary Levi, and he's actually really great. In fact, this movie is so him. It's kind of like Ryan Reynolds, how he fits into Deadpool. Zachary Levi is Shazam. He is this little boy who turns into a superhero, who suddenly has muscles and powers and is a man. And I also want to give a heads up to Asher Angel, who plays the young version of Billy Batson, because I think he is absolutely wonderful in this movie. And what I loved is that after seeing so many years of Harry Potter getting trashed when he went home to his relatives, I've just almost gotten tired of seeing bad portrayals of foster homes or stuff. This has got one of the most heartwarming subplots of foster homes. Like, if foster homes didn't increase after this movie, I would be shocked. Now, there is some problems with Shazam, but I can overlook them because there's so much good in Shazam. And it is definitely, if I knew it wasn't in my top 10, this probably would have been my biggest surprise of the year. But I knew it was getting high honors for being my number 5 movie of the year. Definitely check out Shazam if you have not seen it. I think it's good. Now, this little movie probably came out in 2018. I know it played a lot of the festivals, but I saw it in 2019, and I knew nothing about this movie going in. And look, it's my number 4 movie, Hotel Mumbai. This movie was wonderful. It's got an incredible cast, and of course, it takes a look at the events of terrorists taking over a hotel as they are basically doing some stuff in honor of their religion. I don't want to give too much away, and some of you may be familiar even with the actual story it's based on, but this movie, I was on the edge of my seat, and I'm not always proud that I don't follow news stories, but I really like that I didn't know what happened because I was on the edge of my seat. I didn't know who'd live or survive. What I also loved, I think the thing that I love most about Hotel Mumbai is that the villains in this, the terrorists who are working with a team that's based in religion, there is real moments of showing them as human beings and realizing that they're just doing this to make their countries and their armies feel good, but they actually show the other side of it. And that's the thing I love. They show so many different angles of, this person is going to become a hero. This person's going to sacrifice himself. This person is one of the villains, but he's even questioning what they're doing because they're showing him as a human being. There was a time in the 80s that you wouldn't get this. It would just be, this is a terrorist and he's bad. But they never downplay the villainy. They do, but they actually show them as human beings, and that sometimes they've been misled, and that they do think for themselves, even though a lot of times they're portrayed as not. Hotel Mumbai is just an exciting film and just had me gripping my movie theater chairs through the whole film. There was another movie that did this, and it comes in at number 3. It's Parasite, a Korean film that blew me away. And I'm not going to talk too much about this. Even when I reviewed this, I said, this is going to be one of the worst reviewed films because the less you know about this movie going in, the better it is. All I said at that review is this is literally about a family who lives in the poorer part of town. They can't catch a break. And then one day, their son gets an opportunity to teach English to a well-to-do family's teenage daughter. After that, their lives are changed. How it's changed? You got to take this roller coaster ride yourself. This movie is absolutely gorgeous in so many ways. It's twisted, it's funny, it's dark. It is one hell of a ride, and I never knew where it was going to take me. I had a friend join me for this, and he didn't know what to expect at all. The trailers don't really tell you anything, but this movie there's sequences in it that just make your mind melt, and imagery and the performances are all top notch. Got to give a shout out to the director, Bong Joon-ho. He's phenomenal. He's probably got a good shot at winning the director this year at the Oscars, although I've got sneaking suspicion they might give it to Quentin Tarantino because he doesn't have one yet. But this is a director who's worth looking into. He's done some other movies like The Host and Snowpiercer that are just also phenomenal. He may be a foreign director, but he gets dark comedy, he gets filming. This is a director who is going to be, he's already at the top of his game, and Parasite took him even more. And I can't wait to see what's next for this guy, because he is just so awesome. Parasite, my number 3 film of the year. I really hope it has a shot at number 1. Winning the Oscar, because I know they're talking Irishman or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I like those movies, but I think Parasite deserves it. But it will come down to, is it too dark for Academy voters? My number 2 film of the year is Rocket Man. Taron Egerton takes on the role of Elton John in this powerhouse movie. When this movie came out, I think a lot of people were going to compare it to Bohemian Rhapsody. But where Bohemian Rhapsody was kind of I'm not putting it down when I say this. It's more a linear storytelling. Rocket Man takes it a little bit further. This movie blew me away. I've seen it about 4 times already, and I absolutely love it. Dexter Fletcher is the director, and it's sad that we have so many great directors up for Oscars this year, because he really should be remembered for this. The visuals in this are phenomenal. And Taron Egerton, I'm glad there are some critics places that are putting him on lists for the best of the year, because his performance of Elton John, I think, is even stronger than Rami Malek for Freddie Mercury. I think Elton John's Rocket Man is incredible. And as I said, this isn't like your typical... They do look into the dark side a little more than Bohemian Rhapsody did. But where Bohemian Rhapsody just hears the song, they actually sing it in a musical form. The songs don't always come into the right order. It's just, we need Elton to sing this song, or Elton and his manager are going to sing this song, and it's a really nice feel. Taron Egerton also should get some nods, because he did his own singing in this movie, and they don't worry about him trying to sound like Elton, but he does a damn good job. And looking like Elton, I'm a big fan of Taron Egerton, and I just saw Elton when this movie progressed. I relate to Elton John more than I thought I did because of this movie. The way they do it, too, using him getting therapy, is a beautiful way to retell this story. What's disappointing to me is Bohemian Rhapsody was my favorite movie of last year. I actually think Rocket Man is the better film, but because of another movie, Rocket Man only gets to be my number 2 film of the year. So that's how sometimes a year in movies can be. As I said, Rocket Man's my favorite movie out of that, or Bohemian Rhapsody. It's just, for me, Bohemian Rhapsody didn't have really any competition, but Rocket Man did. And that was in the case of my number 1 movie. Joker. Yep, another movie I didn't want. Another movie that I was not looking forward to. And then the trailers started coming out, and the trailers were doing something to me. The trailers had me hooked. I was worried to go see this movie if I was in a bad mood, because this movie, the trailers scared me. I felt, what if I relate to Joker a lot? And I did. But luckily, I did not get even more depressed when I saw that. In fact, what I walked away with is what I walked away with was the best movie of the year for me. Joker is phenomenal. I know a lot of people don't love Joker, but I think everybody agrees that Joaquin Phoenix is giving the performance of a lifetime here. He really just falls into the character so well. I'm not even going to say he's the best Joker, because I think there's been lots of wonderful portrayals of Joker, from Heath Ledger to Jack Nicholson to even, I liked what Jared Leto did. But why I think Joaquin Phoenix does an amazing role here is due to the fact that he had much more to work with. He's pretty much on screen all the time. There is so much love affairs to Martin Scorsese films in this, especially Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. Maybe that's why I had some problems with The Irishman, is because I already saw a better Martin Scorsese film, and it's this one. Todd Phillips does an incredible job. I think the screenplay is incredible. I'm actually shocked when I hear people say, well, I liked the performance of Joaquin Phoenix, but I don't think Joker's a good script. I think this movie is not only a work of art, but basically is warning us about where the world is heading. The Joker's not totally played up as a sympathetic character. He is a sympathetic character, but we never forget when he starts doing the bad things he does. But this tells us that what creates people like this are everything from society, mental health issues, corporations. But this movie also reminds us that we also play a part in our own thing. You can't blame someone for having mental health issues, but you need to take responsibility for them. I think that is probably one of the most powerful statements that any movie has made this year. I also find the movie, although it's dark, it's incredibly entertaining. I think the sequence, and I don't want to give away too much, because I know it's coming out on DVD and Blu-ray soon, and I hope if you haven't seen it yet, you can check it out. As I said, I didn't want to see this movie, and if I didn't, I wouldn't have my number 1 movie of the year. But I think this movie is just, it's a beautiful, grotesquely beautiful movie that has an incredible script, an incredible soundtrack, not just the music they use, but the composer, the stuff he comes up with. And I think it's just a well put together puzzle that just makes you realize how easily one can crack in a world, and how people will just step over you and look at you as invisible, even though you're like the lengths you have to take to be seen. And people just, and it makes a great social commentary of where we're heading. We talk about mental health issues all the time, but that's all it is. It's talk. There's no actions backing it up. So that is why Joker is my favorite film. Not only does Joaquin Phoenix he will be so robbed if he does not win the Oscar for this, but even if he doesn't, this is one hell of a performance. But it's also one hell of a movie. And it's my favorite movie of 2019. And again, if you told me the Joker movie was going to be my favorite, I would have laughed at you at the beginning of the year. Because I didn't want this movie. I didn't want this movie until I started seeing the trailers. And those trailers were affecting me in a way I'd never felt before. Look at my top 10. A lot of movies I didn't know I wanted. Shazam. I wasn't looking forward to Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker after The Last Jedi. Never even heard of Hotel Mumbai until I walked into the theater. Parasite, a Korean film. That's why you got to take chances on movies. Some people say, well, I know what I like, and that's fine. For casual movie viewers, that's fine. But if you want to be a real movie fan or a cinephile, you got to take chances, even on movies. And trust me, there were some movies I didn't take chances on. I did not see The Lion King, and I don't feel bad that I didn't see The Lion King. It's just I love the original, and this movie looked like it was going to offer me nothing, and from all the people I saw it, I didn't. I did not go see Toy Story 4, even when it was getting huge reviews, because I love the first three so much, and I hated the trailers of all the things I saw. So, yeah, I do not trust everything, but I do take a chance. When I look at this list, I look at all the movies I had no idea. Not only would I go see one day, but would be in my list, whether on the best or the worst. I took a chance. It was a great year of movie watching, and I look forward to what 2020 brings us. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you if you listened, and please comment and let me know if you agree, disagree, what your favorite movies of 2019 were, which ones you thought were the stinkers. For those of you who are looking for Cats in there, I didn't hate Cats as much as I thought I would. I actually think that Tom Hooper should get more credit for taking a chance. I don't think it was a great film by any means, but I didn't think it was as horrible as people thought it was. I personally just didn't like the music. I didn't like the look of the film, but I think you should be commended when you take a chance. They could have just made an animated film or make something close to the Broadway musical. He took a chance, and we need to applaud that more than kick somebody when they're down. Yeah, Cats became one of the big flops of the year, but I still think he should get a pat on the back by saying, thanks for trying something new. Maybe it didn't work as good as taking a chance like Rocket Man, or taking a chance on something like Crawl, but he took a chance. So that's why Cats didn't appear in any of these things. Anyhow, I just had to mention Cats, didn't I? Let me know what you thought about all these movies, and I look forward to talking more movies with you in the near future.